Now, a very warm welcome to this second part of my series on the most likely Supreme Court verdict. Yes. Now, let me start by telling NASA supporters, please, NASA supporters, you need to be strong. Yeah? Don't worry. It's not over until the fat lady sings. Yeah, please take that, bear that to mind. Because what you're going to hear in this part is not going to be very good news. Okay? And it's not going to be encouraging to you either. Now, of course, Jubilee supporters are going to nod their heads, and Jubilee supporters are going to say I'm right, yes. But I'm giving you the reality. I'm not trying to please any side. I'm just giving you the reality. Of course, you know which side I'm on, yeah? Yes, I've said I'm neutral, but I'm on the side of the people of the Republic of Kenya. The common man, the voiceless, yeah? The people who are being messed up in all this. Yeah, that's the side I am on. If you really want to know which side I'm totally devoted to, life membership, the people of Kenya. Okay, so don't start coming to give me a Jubilee NASA things. No. Okay, now if NASA leans more towards the people of the Republic of Kenya, then naturally you'll find my recordings will look like they are leaning towards the NASA side. But actually, I'm a life member of the side called the common man, Wanjiko, the people of the Republic of Kenya. Anyway, let's move on. Now, we have all looked at very good, strong evidence which NASA has presented. That's very good. We have, in fact, the evidence is overwhelming. Yes, on the surface of it, one can say that even the most biased kangaroo court, yeah, would have to sit up and pay attention, right? That would be the verdict. Okay, but this is Kenya, and this is the Supreme Court. Yeah, and everything is not in black and white. Okay, so now let's start with something very important that I need to tell you, which I'm sure most of you did not know, but is very important for you to know and understand as we move forward. Okay, the people who fiddled with the general elections, the people who fiddled with the presidential elections that we've just gone through, they thought through the whole process. Okay, the fiddling was closely linked to a possible presidential petition. Are we together? Yeah? Or let me even simplify it further. Rigging does not end at stuffing of votes. Yes? You have to look at the complete picture. Rigging plus getting away with it. In other words, if you rob a bank, okay, robbing the bank is not just taking the money out of the safe, overpowering everybody in the bank, and you have your bag of money, yes, and you're inside the bank. No. The robbery is not over. You have to get out through the door and escape. Okay? So this phase for the rigging guys is escape phase. And you can sure they planned the escape phase well in advance. That one you can be sure of. Okay? Now in 2013, let me just give you an example so that you understand. In 2013, in the presidential petition, okay, granted, NASA were very overconfident. They did not do their groundwork well. They had some very crucial evidence that was time barred. Yes, all that happened, okay, which made the work of the robbers easier. Yeah, let me just call them the robbers, the riggers, easier for them to escape, okay? But the escape tactic that was used, okay, in 2013 was, you know, the votes did not tally. So what was happening is that when the IEBC were, every time the IEBC were cornered on the vote tally, they would remove another voter's register. Most of you guys were there. You remember that, don't you? Yeah? Sijui green book, sijui red book, sijui purple book, all those were registers. Okay? And the Supreme Court had no basis in law to reject those extra voters' registers. A lot of legal experts argue that you know, it was a shame that they accepted all those voters registers, okay, but then that is a gray area in law. Yeah, that's what they call legal interpretation. Okay, so that is how they got away from the crime scene in 2013. Okay, now in 2017 it's going to be a bit more difficult to get away from the crime scene, a lot more difficult. Okay, but as I told you earlier, you can be sure that they've already planned their way. Yeah, they've already organized this well in advance. I will give you one clue that has puzzled me and may point to one of the escape routes that's going to be used, or rather may point at what we should expect. Now remember, there was a time I did a recording and I told you guys that this election is just a repeat, so much a repeat of 2007. And if it is, the logical conclusion is that Uhuru Kenyatta will win by about 200,000 votes. Remember me telling you that? Well, I didn't pick up that from there. Yeah, I had received what I believe is credible information, okay, that the president was going to win by a couple of 100,000 votes at the most, okay? And indeed, this would reflect the true situation on the ground. It would be more believable to most Kenyans, because those of us who are on the ground know, yeah, the kind of support that Jubilee has and the kind of support that NASA has. Yeah, when one side is better than you, it is easier for you to convince people. I mean, when one side has got more supporters than you, it is much easier. Even candidates in a particular constituency. When one candidate is wildly popular and you want to rig a constituency election vote, then if you win by a very narrow margin, something like 200 votes or 300 votes, that is more believable. Okay? So, going to the elections, when the election results came in, the difference was huge. It was much bigger than even the difference projected in the cooked presidential polls, yeah, which showed that President Uhuru was ahead of Raila by about 5 points. Yeah, the difference that came out in the real thing was much wider. Okay. Now the reason for that wide difference is because it is much harder now for NASA to overturn this the IBC announcement of Uhuru as the president, because the voter margin is wider. Let me explain. I believe I mentioned this in part 1. You see, in this Supreme Court case, changing the status quo is a lot of work. Yeah? You really have to convince the judges and give them very good reason for changing the status quo. You know what is there now with President Uhuru as Kenyatta as the president, okay? And the way you do that is by proving that the vote difference, yeah, the vote difference between the two candidates is not there. Okay? So the wider the vote difference, the harder the NASA lawyers have to work. Do you get what I mean? Yes? Now in 2013 it was very easy and NASA blew it. Okay. They didn't only blow it, but also on the other side there was a lot of these machinations, a bit of which I'm going to speak about in this recording. But in 2013 all NASA had to prove was that the 7,000 votes, only 7,000 votes, that gave President Uhuru Kenyatta the 50+1, yeah, was not there. That's all they had to prove. Yes, if they proved that the 7,000 votes were not there, then that was enough to overturn the because that's the only votes which were above the 50%. You understand what I'm talking about? Yeah. So they just had to eliminate those 7,000 votes, and were going to go back to the polls, and they failed. Okay. Now this time round, they have 1.something million votes to disapprove. Remember, I told you these guys are very intelligent and they always think ahead. They always one step ahead. When you are thinking of elections being rigged, why are we not winning? They're already planning the Supreme Court case. You understand what I mean? Yeah. And when you're already at the initial submission and evidence, they're already at the end of the trial. You understand what I mean? Yes. So the voter margin was deliberate. And I'll tell you something else, because I'm on the ground. Yeah. The true picture, the true situation according to our polls is that Raila Odinga won by a landslide. Okay? So what I'm saying here is that a lot had to be done to eliminate that landslide victory. Yeah? Including deducting votes. Yes, a lot of deduction of votes was done. Yeah? Because Kenyans voted overwhelmingly in large numbers for Raila Amolo Odinga. That's the truth. Okay? So they had to do a lot of deductions. Yes, and they had to take great risk, yeah, for them to get that wide margin which they got. Kisa na maana, or the purpose of that, that's Kiswahili. The purpose of that is to make it that much harder, yeah, during the Supreme Court, anticipated Supreme Court petition, to make it that much harder for NASA to be able to overturn the IEBC announcement of Uhuru as president. It's as simple as that. Now, this planning ahead does not involve dunderheads or people who do not know what they're doing. Yeah, this planning ahead involved the best legal minds you can think of within Kenya and even outside Kenya. Okay, So this is what NASA is up against. It's not a joke. This is what NASA is up against, okay? So while you may be able to go into court and prove 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah? If NASA are not able to prove that the malpractices and the whatever went wrong was enough to alter the result of the election, if they cannot prove that, then they've lost the case. It's as, you know, I told you the law is an ass, but that's what it is. So when you take all that into consideration, we now know why Jubilee was celebrating when they heard that NASA were going to court, because in effect what was happening is that by NASA going to court, they would close, once they lose the petition, they would close all other legal avenues of being able to contest the presidency of the Uhuru Kenyatta, yeah? But as long as they remained out of court, the whole election remained a grey area. The whole election remained a mystery. People are not sure what happened, Nini, and so on and so forth. But by the Supreme Court validating, yes, by the Supreme Court validating the widespread theft and fraud of Jubilee, then it would legitimize the government. Okay, it would legitimize the election. That's really what it is. So if we're to be honest with ourselves, the results of this petition are already known before you even start. Yeah, NASA are going to lose. Okay, and that's the truth. Okay. However, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a small, let us call this a football match, which we already know is a rigged football match. We already know that a certain team is going to win. We already know that the team, let's say one of the teams has great odds against it. It has got many disadvantages. Maybe even they're starting the game with 9 players, yeah? Okay? So, what do you do when you already know you're at a disadvantage, when you approach a trial like this one? What you do is what NASA have done, yeah? Now, for information, NASA started planning for this Supreme Court case almost at the same time as their counterparts in Jubilee started planning for it, a long time ago. Yeah, when they're having these court cases contesting certain parts of the constitution, blah blah blah, already evidence was being gathered, yes, towards this petition. Hence the voluminous number of documents, okay, all that is going to be presented as evidence. So to NASA's credit, the opposition is much better prepared this time than it was last time. Okay. There are 2 other things that Jubilee has, NASA has, that is going to be to their advantage, okay? Or rather, there are 2 other advantages that will swing in NASA's side, okay? The first is, I believe, that the plan this time, yeah, has too many moving parts. The Jubilee plan to steal the election has too many moving parts. Many more moving parts than 2013, okay? What do I mean? When you build a machine, you limit the number of moving parts. You know, the parts which are moving, they need to be oiled. It's metal hitting against metal. There are many more things bound to go wrong than in a part which is non-moving. You know, a part which is just stagnant. You see, like in the vehicle, that would be the seat inside the cars. You know, they're stagnant. So the chances of anything going wrong with those particular things inside the car are very, very minimal, unless of course there's massive abuse or, you know, deliberate effort to damage. It's unlikely that anything would go wrong there. Okay. Now in 2013 they had minimal moving parts, yeah, and they were successful. Now unfortunately, or fortunately for the people of Kenya, in 2017 the Jubilee plan has just too many moving parts. What that means is that there's something bound to go wrong somewhere. And already we have seen quite a number of things go wrong. I will go into that in other recordings, but already we have seen signs that there are so many things which have gone wrong. Too many moving parts, yeah, in the Jubilee plot, or in the Jubilee conspiracy, if I can call it that, yeah, that something is bound to go wrong, okay? Number 2, public opinion of the vast majority of Kenyans, okay? And this way the government has been so concerned about the media. The government has been so concerned even about controlling your thinking on social media, okay? Now, their greatest fear has come to pass, okay? Their greatest fear was public opinion turning against them. And what has happened, especially over the last 2 weeks or so, is that even those people who were not very much opposed to Jubilee, you know, they could, you know, they thought Jubilee was okay, they could live with Jubilee and so on and so forth. Those people now have turned, yeah, and they feel now they're very much against the Jubilee government, okay? And with good reason. We all know what has happened. The brutal, very brutal murder of Chris Kumekucha, the shooting of children during protests, yes, the clobbering of a toddler in Kisumu, etc., etc. Public opinion is now very much focused against the government in power. Now, how does that affect a petition? It affects a petition in very many ways, because this petition is not being held in mass. Yeah, I know lawyers are going to disagree with me, or the lawyers, the bench is independent, it's not influenced by anybody. Of course, they're going to disagree with me, but it influences in many ways. I'll just give you one example. One example is when the public opinion is so much against them, people who may have kept some certain secrets related to this particular petition will be more willing to come forward. You understand? And spill the beans, yes, and bail out NASA. Understand what I mean? That's just one small example. And in the coming recordings, I'll be giving other examples. So those are two things which are giving NASA a fighting chance in this presidential petition. And this is why the petition against the presidency of Uhuru Kenyatta 2017 is going to be a landmark case in the Republic of Kenya. It is going to be one particular case which is going to be talked about 300 years from now. Yeah, if people are going to still be existing on this earth, it is going to be an earth-breaking, earth-shattering trial. Yeah, so let's get ready for it. I will try my best to keep you up to date with what's happening, to make sure that you're one step forward, the way you're already one step forward after listening to this recording, and we hope for the best. Okay, mine is I just wish and hope for a better Kenya. Yeah, whatever happens, we fight every day, every night, every hour, every minute for a better Kenya. I have no other agenda. A better Kenya for my children, a better Kenya for my grandchildren, and so on and so forth. And I'm sure most of you out there who always listen to this channel, and I thank you very much, I'm sure that is the same thing you have in your heart and in your mind. Until next time, this is Chris Kumekucha.